of your panelists are behaving as if they are living in a cemetery. Is it not police impotence to witness party thugs coercing a returning officer to declare the results in favor of their party? How can it be consistent with rationality that the police and EC officials should work in the danger zone, where violence is staring at them in the face? Which court will validate duress? How can the EC be in charge of security? This is a member of parliament who has a stake in these processes. Thank you very much. Now, Rhoda Osei-Afful, thank you so very much. And Rhoda is with CDD, and they, together with the very known group, CODEO, Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, were on the field and saw everything that happened. Rhoda, how do we resolve these challenges that have come up? And what is the CODEO's verdict on the process that the EC has been forced to truncate?
Good morning, Samson, and thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
I hear you clearly, Rhoda.
Great, thanks. Yes, so a lot already has been said by panelists in studio. I think it's quite unfortunate that given all that transpired in 2020, we are still back in 2024, 4 years down the line, to some of the same issues that we had in the previous elections. You mentioned what CODEO has been doing. Indeed, picking up from 2012, one of the areas for reform that CODEO sought to engage the Electoral Commission on was on the issue of collation, because we all remember some of the challenges we had at our collation centers: overcrowding, incidents of violence, issues with collation and all of that. And so there was a lot of efforts from the CODEO front to sort of engage the EC, first of all, trying to put together some kind of advice, recommendations that the EC could sort of consider, and in terms of its review of the collation process. And indeed, there was some engagement that took place. I think for me, there are also questions about how the EC itself also sort of looked back on that process, the previous process, that is the 2020 process, and how it's brought forth certain lessons with it. I know that a few things were done for this year. I know that a few collation centers were some collation centers were relocated with security arrangements in mind moving into 2024. But given that we have come back to some of these issues, I think the issue is what we did. How did we engage all the other actors, all the other stakeholders, the political parties? What did we arrive at? Because the bottom line is that you want to be able to deepen trust. You want to be able to deepen transparency around the process. Otherwise, everything that you do can be undermined by one or the other actor. And so, I mean, we came out with a few proposals, one of which is, one, what are we looking at? Do you want to deepen transparency with your electorate? In which case, if you are looking at the coalition process in terms of access, in terms of transparency, what arrangements do you want to put in place? And two, if you want to limit access, then what other alternative arrangements do you want to put in place to make sure that even if people are not coming there, even if you have just a few agents there, we will still be able to trust the outcomes that are coming out of this process. Mind you, the issue of publication of polling station results is something that has been on the table for so long, and it's one issue that we believe that if the EC is able to carry along, if it's able to implement publishing polling station results so that you're able to decenter, there's a lot of focus and attention on collation centers, but if people can have alternative ways of accessing polling station results, if people can sit back and do their own calculations and add figures together, because basically that's what the collation process is about, adding up the figures from the various polling stations within the constituency. I don't think this should be too much work for all of us to be able to do. So again, I think it's something that goes to the EC in terms of how do we engage everyone on the best way forward. But that is on the side of the EC. it will be unfortunate for me to just focus on the EC and discount the role of the other actors, the political parties, in terms of where we have ended up, right? I believe strongly that mantra that we need to invade collation centers or police stations in terms of calling on supporters and all of that, I think it's not a great approach to addressing one problem, okay? I know that there are some concerns that parties have, that candidates have, but we don't create other problems by trying to solve one particular problem. So if we believe there are issues about trust, that we cannot trust certain people in terms of their delivery on certain responsibilities, can we look at an approach that doesn't, in the process, create other problems? Okay, so every party, and the good thing is that for almost all coalition centers, almost all police stations, we have our two leading parties having their agents present. We almost always have the NCP and the NDC being present at about 99%, almost 100% of all police stations. So if these parties are present, copies of results sheets are given to them. I don't see why, if there are any concerns, they cannot resort to these copies that they have and use the legal processes and mechanisms to address these, but rather we choose to call on supporters to come to these coalition centers, because in that process, we are not able to address any serious issue at all, right? We end up putting ourselves in the situation that we have found in some of these constituencies where we have found all these issues of violence and challenges with the process.
Rhoda, the parties will tell you, you remember that it was during the night, somewhere getting to midnight, that you had Sammy Gyamfi first call on the NDC supporters to head to the polling coalition centers because there were attempts at swapping results and so on and so forth. And then we condemned it roundly. Just before we could finish, Dennis Miracles Abuaje, also speaking for the Bawumia campaign, also held a press conference, condemned what Sammy Gyamfi has said. And before he could finish, he also asked their supporters to go to those polling coalition centers. They will tell you that they went there to protect and to avoid their verdict being stolen. You don't agree that they are going there helps to an extent?
I mean, something from the 2013 presidential election petition, one thing that came out clearly for the political parties is that vigilance is key, right? And that they need to be vigilant. And I commend our political parties in many other African countries where I've observed elections. The kind of diligence that you see our parties do here, I am yet to see it elsewhere. And for that, I think it contributes to credibility of our process and where we are. And I commend them for that. But at the same time, also, we have to be able to sort of, we need to be measured in our response, in our vigilance. So I was making reference to the 2013 election petition. And then the sense that you have to be vigilant at the police station and the coalition center was also reinforced in 2020 when we went back to the court and then proceedings, we witnessed the proceedings that took place. So yes, the parties have to they have to do their diligence. But the issue is, how are you doing that, right? Is it by calling on the masses, by calling on the people? Because my point is, when the masses come to the coalition centers, when they go to the police stations, what exactly are they going to do, right? Are they going to stop the poll officials from doing their work? Are they going to do their own collation? So we need to be clear, when we call on people to come, what exactly are we expecting them to do other than to resort to something like violence, right? So we need to see how we can navigate that quite well so that we don't create all these problems. The EC has the role, but certainly we cannot discount the role and the influence of the political parties in terms of the outcome that we have seen with this process.
So when Sammy Gyamfi, for example, asked the party supporters to go there and Dennis did the same thing, I asked them one simple question. Maybe because you have boots on the ground all over these elections. Of course, election headquarters here at Joy, we also have boots on the ground, but you have some expertise. So tell us, I asked them the question, if your party supporters go to their coalition centers, what exactly can they do to change anything? Because at the coalition center, the coalition centers are not open to the supporters. So they don't get access into the collation center. They don't get to see anything that goes on at the collation center. Again, at the collation center, it is the forms that have been filled and signed by presiding officers and party agents or candidate agents that is taken there. The ballot boxes don't really matter. And each party has a copy of the results already. These are the results that are simply collated. There's no counting of ballots that is done unless there is a second request for a recount, which a presiding officer declined, and then has to report to the returning officer to do the recount of those ballots. So is there something else that they are able to do to influence the process if these supporters get to the collation center?
Right. I mean, exactly the point that I was making. That's what you just sort of restated for me. Exactly what do we want the supporters to do at these centers other than to intimidate? Because, mind you, people have their own understanding, different understanding of the laws. A party agent's understanding of the procedures at the collation center may not be the same as a voter who has just been called upon to move to the collation center, and they come there and they have limited knowledge, information, right? They don't know what is happening inside the collation center, and they can easily be incited, right? There's a lot of information going on social media. It can trigger all kinds of reactions. So we just have to be careful about some of these issues and how we want to handle it. So the call is out to political parties again. If there are concerns, if you were given a copy of the page sheet or the results declaration form, I don't see why we should not be able to pick up all of these issues or whatever challenges we may have with the process, pick it up even after the declaration, whether it's going to court or picking up with the Electoral Commission. I don't see why we cannot do that unless we are saying that the EC is not giving us copies of the results, which I don't believe is the case. So whatever the problem is, we should be able to use the established channels. If they are not adequate, yes, we may have to engage on that and see how best we expand on the provisions that we have.
If your verdict is that they only ask them to go there to intimidate, nothing more. Intimidation, according to the representation of the people's law, of election officials and so on, is a criminal conduct that has to be punished. How do we stop it going forward?
So, yes, I don't know what their main intention is when they say go to the police station. I want to take it on face value that their intention is that they want to be there so that no wrong can be done. Again, we have just spoken about how limited the voter is in terms of even accessing the collation center to be able to make any meaningful impact. And so ultimately, what we are able to get is some of the developments we have with harassment, with intimidation, with incidents of violence. Sometimes it's even the voters themselves who become the victims of this process, right? So basically, looking at the way forward, the EC and the parties all have to engage on how we want to design our collation process, right? And I don't think there's a shortage of ideas. I think the point is about engagement. I'm sure certain things were done prior to 2024 elections with results to the collation process, but the extent to which this was done is what I'm not so certain about.
Right. So now let me get to Suleimana, and we are thankful also to be joined by Chairman of the National Peace Council.